Hi, listeners. This is Chris Batts, your host of the Law Firm Leadership Podcast. In today's episode, I had a wonderful conversation with a known AmLaw 100 law firm leader, Andrew Glincher of Nixon Peabody. Not surprising, leadership was the focus of our conversation. Andrew reflected on his decisions he made weathering the 2008 crisis and preparing for the next one. Also, Andrew wouldn't be sharing about leadership unless he talked about Abraham Lincoln and Warren Buffett. Just a reminder, the PDF transcript of this audio is available to download. Go to liongrouprerecruiting.com/podcast. As many of you know, we interview corporate defense law firm leaders, partners, general counsels, legal consultants. You're listening to episode 23 of the Law Firm Leadership Podcast.
Broadcasting from Kansas City, this is the Law Firm Leadership Podcast. In each episode, you'll receive actionable ideas and hear personal leadership stories of the top corporate defense law firms from around the United States. Enjoy a front row seat with law firm leaders, their partners, and legal consultants as we discuss life and leadership.
Welcome to the Law Firm Leadership Podcast. I'm your host, Chris Batts with the Lion Group. Today, I have the pleasure of speaking with Andrew Glincher, CEO and managing partner of Nixon Peabody. Andrew lives in Boston and leads an AmLaw 100 law firm with 1,500 colleagues, of which 700 are attorneys, across 17 offices. He received his law degree from Northeastern University School of Law. Welcome, Andrew, to the Law Firm Leadership Podcast. It's great to have you on the show.
Thank you, Chris. It's a pleasure to be on.
Now, Andrew, as a fan of leadership myself and have been watching many law firm leaders around the United States, your name definitely comes up regularly. And I wanted to just kind of come out of the gate and ask you the question, maybe while in law school, has it always been an aspiration of yours to be, say, a managing partner of a law firm or a large law firm?
I have a business background and have taught at Boston College's business school for 23 years. So I love business and have been involved in business. And I always felt that I would use my law degree to run some sort of business. I just never thought that business would be a law firm.
Yeah, to be the business of law. With saying that, how long have you been the managing partner, CEO at Nixon Peabody?
I'm in my eighth year of having the privilege to run the firm.
Let's talk about the firm for a moment. You had shared with me earlier that it's just been a special and important past couple of years, record-breaking. Can you explain a little bit about that to us?
Part of our business, as you know, is changing rapidly.
Yep.
And I don't think our business will look very similar today in 5 years, and especially 10 years down the road. And there are a lot of law firms that are trying to be a lot of things to a lot of different people. We're focused on what we can do best, where we can provide the greatest value for our clients. And that strategy of focusing where you can make the most impact has really been helpful. As part of that, the importance of knowing and understanding our client's business has been paramount. The law firm of the future, and indeed even the law firm of today, dictates that you need to be beyond the lawyer. You need to know beyond the law, and that knowledge needs to be the industry and business that your clients are in. Lawyers need to learn that clients' businesses on their own dime and to help focus clients and on their business, on their strategy to be ahead of where they are today, so you can help solve what are essentially business problems. Clients today don't come to lawyers like they used to, looking to have you tell them the statute of limitations or some basic law question. It's usually they're looking for a collaborative relationship, a mutually beneficial partnership that is going to enhance their business.
With that same theme of doing law differently, or as the industry has evolved, where has Nixon Peabody kind of fit in that picture? I know you talked about focusing on your strengths and adding talent. Explain a little bit more about that.
When we were looking at how we're perceived by our clients and indeed the world, we were told that what folks like about us is that we seem to like each other and work well together. We knew that, and we enjoy collaborating and work well in teams, and we look at each other's strengths and play off those strengths. We didn't recognize that clients really appreciated that. And that feedback came back to us over and over again when we were surveying not just clients, but industry leaders. And it was good to have our feelings ratified and that was important to our clients and folks we did business with.
Tell me about some of the environment that you're creating culturally, say for leadership for your laterals, as you're adding people to your team. I mean, why are people coming to Nixon Peabody and staying?
Well, it's a very entrepreneurial culture. Part of that stems from my background, and part of it stems from when I took over this role. I sat one night watching the Boston Red Sox, reading an AmLaw magazine, looking at the top 100 firms in the world, and I took a look at what each firm did, their descriptions, their profits, their rankings, where their locations were, what practices they have. And I realized that each firm sort of looked like the other firm. There were no firms that really stuck out. And at that point, it became apparent to me that if you could somehow differentiate your firm, even one small iota, it could help make a huge difference. So one of the things that I've always believed in leadership is that everybody's a leader. It doesn't matter what your role is in an organization. You do not need a title to be a leader. And I have tried to give people opportunities, even though they might not be readily apparent, a part of leadership at the present time. So I've had folks that are less experienced, more junior in the partnership ranks than others, and I've recognized certain interpersonal skills, emotional intelligence, hard work, grit, determination, and put them in leadership positions such as an office managing partner role, a practice group leadership role, not because so much of what they've accomplished today, but what they can accomplish. I'm really not looking just at what's today's talent. If you're looking at today's talent, you're going to do the same old, same old. You're going to see people who are in these positions. You're going to see people doing them well. And what ends up happening is you end up recycling the same population. And if you recycle the same population, you don't end up with new people. If you don't have new people and a diversity of people, then you don't end up with new ideas and a diversity of ideas. So we've given those types of opportunities. For laterals are our best salespeople for new laterals and new M&A for our firm. We've had laterals join us where I recognize leadership ability, and I've asked them to take on leadership roles such as office managing partner of offices such as Los Angeles, our San Francisco office, and they've done that sometimes in their first year or so, and they've done it very successfully. And folks that come to us from other firms or companies, because we hire folks from in-house as well, and from government especially, really are people that believe in the vision and the mission, because they've been other places. They see that what we're doing is different. Every managing partner I've ever met will tell you that they believe they have a good culture. So you really need other people that believe that within your organization. It doesn't really matter what I say. It matters a lot more what folks that are working day in and day out and that have been at other organizations say when they come and join us. So they're our greatest ambassadors.
Yeah, that's excellent. I appreciate you sharing. Let me pivot to another question. Let's talk about change. So in the next 5 to 10 years, Andrew, what do you see change on the horizon for large law firms, and how are you planning for this?
Change is occurring around us rapidly. People can take a look at technology and how technology has changed the way we work. When I started practicing, I had a fax machine I bought so I could make it home by 7:30 at night and have dinner with my little ones. It spewed out something that looked like wax paper, and you needed a scissor to cut it. And the copies were not very good, but it gave me flexibility. It was about the size of 30 by 30 or something. It was enormous. Obviously, today in real time, you can have almost anything you want, any information, any document. Having voicemail was a big thing. Now, if you leave a voicemail for somebody that's of millennial age, that is very uncool. They see that there is no need. My kids will remind me, there is no need for you to leave a voicemail. I know you called. I can see it by a missed call. So, technology has obviously changed. And for lawyers, you can't just print out a document and think that you're going to add value for a client. It has to be much, much more than that. And we are seeing how we use space change. So in 2015, which really started in 2013, I started planning for single-size offices for all attorneys and at Nixon Peabody. I believe we were one of the first law firms, if not the first, to do this. And we've done it now in Washington, D.C., and Los Angeles, in New York City, now Boston and San Francisco. And originally it was a challenge. Partners were giving up large offices, corner offices. We've made the corners into conference rooms, or really they're collaboration rooms. They're smaller rooms where people can collaborate. We've done all glass offices, so the views and openness of space would lead to more people working together, closer together, collaborating closer together. And it's really enhanced the way I think that we do business. People really embrace the vision, and it has helped us to do business better. That being said, we've reduced our footprint by about a third for the same headcount.
Yeah, that's excellent.
In the future, I think 5-10 years down the road, folks are going to look and say, why do we need this much space?
Let me transition and ask you about weathering storms. So I know that you became the managing partner and CEO. I think it was around 2010, or was it 2009?
December of 2010.
What was your role, Andrew, before then?
Before then, I was the managing partner of the Boston office for 7 years.
Okay.
Which was our largest office.
Let me ask you this question about weathering storms. I mean, so everyone's asking, when is the next economic downturn? How was it weathering the storm in 2008, 2009? You basically took on the helm of the firm in a pretty difficult economic season for all law firms, and yet you pick up that role. Explain to me kind of what you went through in that and how you're preparing for the next one.
We have no debt, and I'm proud of that. I'm very fiscally conservative, and I didn't feel at the time that I had a great amount of wiggle room. You couldn't afford to be wrong in a major way.
Yeah.
And for lawyers, if you just went by your traditional legal background, that would be a very tough thing for most people.
Yeah.
As a business person, which our clients are, the most important thing is you have to keep making decisions. You cannot do anything to delay making decisions. Sometimes you'll be right. Sometimes you'll be wrong. But the worst thing in the world for most businesses is not to make a decision. So we were fiscally very conservative, but we still invested heavily in marketing and in knowledge management and things that would improve how we are able to service our clients, and focused really on playing to our strengths. What is it that we do well? And we're recommitted to our values, and that went a long way. So, Chris, when you speak about the next recession, I mean, that will be, that will come. Everything comes in cycles, and we're already seeing higher interest rates. People say it's a result of a healthy economy and full employment, and part of that is true. Inflation appears to be under control, but if you look at the cost of certain things, that there's a reason to be skeptical, and of course, lawyers can always find a reason to be skeptical. We are better positioned leadership-wise. One of the things was a priority for me was leadership development. Okay. And that meant bringing more people into the inner circle, giving them exposure as to how we do things, what we do. Financially, we're in better position because we have no debt. Our clients' relationships are stronger than ever, though you can't be complacent about that or take it for granted for a second because of the competition, which is intense for clients. So you always have to be providing your clients with exceptional service and quality of work. So all of that is better. We're just set up better. We've established leases in many places. Our staffing is excellent in terms of providing value, but needs to continue to evolve. But economically, financially, I think emotionally, which does play a part because we deal with elevator assets. our assets go home every night,
every day,
and they have the choice whether or not they want to come back the next day. And I need to make sure that Nixon Peabody, along with my fellow partners, we need to make sure Nixon Peabody is the place people want to come back to the next day, and you can't take that for granted.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. Again, I appreciate what you bring to the table, Andrew. Just it really speaks volumes. Let me ask you this question, and this is going to be kind of a fun twist. I actually dreamt of this question for you, knowing that we were going to talk today. So think of the future law firm leader of today, maybe taking over the next largest law firm. If you were to combine a couple different individuals, either alive or dead today, what kind of people would you put together, say famous, to make the next law firm leader? Actually, name people. Like if you were to take a historical individual that you respect or a current leader that you respect, and we bring them together, this is kind of the person I would want to lead the next largest law firm.
Well, I've always admired Abraham Lincoln. My office is at the corner intersection of Lincoln and Summer Street. I collect Lincoln pennies. I've got Lincoln right up in my office here, along with all the Lincoln stamps and Lincoln coins for strong values and discipline in times of crisis. And just you need to have, as you've seen with everything going on in today's world, you need to have a moral authority to lead.
Yeah.
And you need to have strong values. You need to be able to communicate clearly. Although one of Abraham Lincoln's famous quotes was, "If I had a long time, I could write you a short letter." I always found that to be humorous because people go on, but he could communicate succinctly. Yeah. If despite making fun of the amount of time that it took. If you read some of Lincoln's letters, they've been they've been great. You need a high degree today of emotional intelligence and interpersonal skills. You need to be relatable to all of those people, and often those your people span multiple generations.
Who do you think out currently, maybe someone separate than Abraham Lincoln, that would model good emotional intelligence today?
I can look at the coach of the manager of the Boston Red Sox, new manager Alex Cora. I can look at the coach of Brad Stevens of the Celtics. They both seem to be relatable. I think they're both less experienced, but they definitely are relatable to their players, and their players get what's going on. I just think it's that part of it's really important. I mean, I look at a lot of the business leaders, and you're not really sure when you look at some of the business leaders today if they really resonate with the people that come in and day out and work so hard to make their organization successful. Yeah. But I think it's that type of emotional intelligence and connecting. If you can't connect with your folks, if you can't build trust, you really don't have much of anything.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. Here's another question, then. You brought this up about Abraham Lincoln, and this is more for you, Andrew. Knowing that moral authority was really critical to Abraham Lincoln, do you have any personal history of moral authority, or where that grounded you as a leader?
Personal history. So before, my parents and grandparents always taught me that you've got to stand up for folks that were underserved, and I've always my attitude has always been to be a voice for those who maybe weren't as represented, and stand up for underdogs. And I just have always had the need to speak up when I thought that there was some injustice. I was not always as political in my comments as I could be, or as judicious in my comments. For that reason, I never thought when I joined what was a big firm of 60 lawyers that I would ever stay. I gave it a year at a time. But the reason I did stay was I really loved the people. And even though people didn't always agree with me, they did let me voice my opinion. And I was in a culture where it was okay to voice your opinion, even though sometimes I would be given a hard time. It was okay to do. I couldn't work in a place where I couldn't voice my opinion. It just wouldn't work for me, and I couldn't work in a place where I couldn't work to benefit everybody. And I understand that, but I think it's important that you be empathetic to everyone and that you understand that everybody's in different positions, and that whenever possible, you speak up for people that don't have a voice. And I've been able to do that here. I've been able to do that in my charitable endeavors and community endeavors. And, I think that I just feel a duty to do that. So if you ask about moral authority or doing those things, that's it. I'm not a perfect person. I make plenty of mistakes, and I just am on a lifelong self-improvement mission. And everybody I work with, I try to instill that we all need to keep learning and keep reinventing ourselves. And lifelong learning is really important. And one of the things that's so great about this job is I listen and learn from my colleagues. I always learn new things. You can never think that you know it all or know most of it or anything. As soon as you do that, you're sort of history, in my opinion. You have to always evolve and learn and understand different perspectives and different views, so you can then help make the best decisions possible for your organization.
And when I hear you say lifelong learning, that reminds me, because I attended the Berkshire Hathaway shareholder event. Do you speak from admiration of Mr. Buffett and Munger?
I do. I don't know Charlie Munger as much. I do know Warren Buffett. I have, read a lot about Buffett over the years and long admired him, mainly because of his personal values, his willingness to not sugarcoat things and speak from the heart, and his low-key lifestyle, given he's one of the wealthiest men in the world, and also his benevolence. But he just had a lot of practical advice about really knowing businesses and not buying things that you don't use, and things like that. So I do admire Warren Buffett a great deal. I also, in many ways, look at a law firm as an investment business, where you are each year for your strategy, you need to be nimble and strategic, and you need to understand where you should be investing perhaps more money in different parts of different parts of our business or practices at a different time. So I think that's helpful. You need to keep an even keel. It's important to be balanced, to have balanced perspective and balanced judgment, and recognize that, some things are, while they may seem of earth-shattering importance at the moment, if you ask whether or not that'll mean something 3 to 5 years down the road, and if the answer is it isn't, then it won't, then, maybe you look at it with a different perspective and you don't become overwhelmed by it.
Yeah. Let me ask you a question that kind of just is a reflection of when you were younger, Andrew, and this could be advice to someone who's, say, in their 20s, but if you could pick one habit that someone could do or that you would have done consistently from your 20s, what would that be?
I think persistence goes a long way.
Yeah.
If you want something and want to do something, if you work really hard at it, I really believe it's possible for most people. I really do. If there's something's really important to them and they're persistent and work hard, they can really achieve almost anything.
That's excellent. And so it's sort of transitioning into personal questions at this point, but along that same line, let me ask you a question. How important is routine to you? Do you have a morning routine or a different type of routine? Tell me about that. Having
good habits and good routines helps you be balanced, and it helps you be excellent at what you do. I get up early. I try and work out when I first get up, because I know once my day starts and I get into the office, I'm not the type that can just get out of the office. Once I'm here and I'm working, and usually have meetings for the entire day into early evening at least. And I think habits are really important. I tell people to strive for balance, because balance gives you better perspective and judgment. I encourage people to spend time with their families because I think that's really important.
Yeah.
You have to have a balanced perspective. You don't make really good decisions if you're tired all of the time or if you're not balanced. I force myself, if I don't remember to do it, to take walks, to go outside and get grounded. And sometimes just a breath of fresh air or walking around the block for a couple of times on a crazy day can give you better balance, better thinking, better perspective. And you try and do that. I don't always model that behavior. I do model the behavior of routines, but sometimes my life doesn't look very much like it's balanced. But I have a wonderful and supportive spouse and 3 children who are now in their 20s to 30, and so they don't need me as much anymore. So I can afford to be maybe a little skewed to balance. And in this business, you can't always control your own schedule, but you can control your routine and your time discipline and what you're focused on and on doing and doing better.
Andrew, are you a reader, and do you have any book recommendations for the summer? Anything that you plan on reading?
Oh, I've been reading Warren Buffett's Snowball forever, and that's an older book. So the big joke in my house is I have a house full of voracious readers, and the big joke is my wife probably reads a new book every week, and she keeps asking me to read books for fun and passion. And I read so much for my business, so much in legal and business that my eyes are tired and I don't read much for fun. My fun reading is, different blogs, different articles, the Wall Street Journal, Boston Globe, New York Times. I would say that would be, to the extent I'm, fun, maybe watching a comedy thing or reading, but I don't read as much as I probably should for pleasure.
Let me ask you this too. Do you and your family have plans for the summer, ways to enjoy either sports or travel?
We will definitely enjoy some of the summer. I like to get away in the winter more. It's my time.
Okay.
And the summer allows me to sort of catch up because the rest of the world takes time.
Yep.
But I enjoy any time at all. Walking around the beach is awesome. I enjoy the fresh air of the beach and going for walks and exercising, by the beach. Try and take long weekends and spend with friends. We have no formal vacation plan, but we'll do long weekends down the Cape and things like that.
Very good. I appreciate that. And it sounds your part of the country would be beautiful. Here's a last question, Andrew. So I can't remember who exactly said this, but I know that 10,000 hours, or it's been said that 10,000 hours makes someone an expert doing something. Andrew, if you were to be an expert in a certain skill that took that many hours to do, that's not necessarily law related, what skill would that be? And it can be, frankly, anything. I'm just curious if there's something else in life that if you had an expert skill in after 10,000 hours, what would that be?
I want to be a talk show host.
A talk show host?
Yeah, I'd like to be a talk show host, maybe. That would be good. I'd say I'd like to golf, but I would also need a good back for that.
Yeah.
And I did spend a lot of hours, and I never was very good, so I'm not confident even with 10,000 hours I'd be very good. But yeah, maybe a talk show host would be good.
Is this like a late night show or like an early morning show, like a morning show?
I'd probably be better in the evening. Than early morning.
Yeah. Well, excellent answer. Andrew, thank you so much for being on the show and just setting aside your valuable time to just share some insights on your life and the way you lead. And again, thank you. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you, Chris. This was fun. And as I tell my colleagues, you have to have some fun.
You do. Thank you, everyone who listened to this episode of the Law Firm Leadership Podcast. If you have questions or would like to recommend someone to be on the podcast, please email them to podcast@findthelions.com. If you like this podcast, please leave a review on iTunes. Also, share our podcast via email or social media. To share our podcast, listen to more shows, or to read the transcription of this audio, go to liongroup.recruiting.com/podcast.
Thank you for listening to the Law Firm Leadership Podcast. This podcast is for education purposes only. This content cannot be used for commercial use without written permission from the Lion Group. If you like this podcast, leave a review on iTunes.